tuning in to the Illuminations podcast. We love having you here. It is our mission to be a beacon of light on your journey towards conscious and mindful living. In our weekly episode, we bring you inspiring change makers in the field of spirituality, healing, personal growth, and wellness who share their insight and expertise so you can navigate your way to a happier, healthier, and more purposeful life. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Illuminations World Podcast. And today I'm going to ask you a question. What if the stress, anxiety that you feel is not just in your mind, but also in your body? And what if the key to healing isn't just about talk therapy, but learning how to physically release it? Today, I'm sitting with Ariel Daunay, a renowned somatic healer, feminine embodiment coach, and transformative mentor. For over 30 years, she's been helping women heal trauma, unlock their true confidence, and reconnect with their body's innate wisdom. Ariel's work is proof that healing just isn't in the mind, but it's also in the body. So if you've ever struggled with feeling emotionally stuck in any area of your life, and what if talk therapy just hasn't worked for you? And if you're ready to connect with your most confident, sensual, and powerful self, this episode is for you. By the end of this conversation, you will understand how your body holds the key to so much wisdom and how it holds on to trauma and how you can emotionally release it. You will also understand the biggest myths that we have about healing and why somatic therapy can help you resolve so many of the issues that you face. So, welcome to another episode of the Illuminations World Podcast. I'm your host, Soniya, and I'm so excited to dive in today with Ariel Daunay on the Illuminations Podcast. So Ariel, thank you so much today for being on the Illuminations World Podcast. I'm so grateful to have you here. I know that I've had such an amazing experience in your healing sessions when I visited you, I guess, a couple of months ago. And there was so much profound wisdom that I gained by you doing the somatic work that I experienced. So I'd love to first understand, how did you get into all this work? And obviously everybody has a personal journey. And I'd love to hear how you have spent your whole life dedicated to helping people based on somatic therapy.
Thank you so much, Sonia, for having me on your amazing podcast. And I love this question. So for me, I started on this journey in about 1990. And personally, what happened was my mother was passing away. And so I spent about a year with her in the journey. And it was a profound time in my life. And I realized through the passing process, because her body was going through so much pain, that there was a lot of hidden content or information that was coming out vicariously without her realizing. So I actually discovered more about who she was through the pain process that she was going through. And that led me to be very curious of how does the body hold the story of our life? How come we don't disclose that? And then how is it that with the right, I could say, environment, sometimes we let things out and let things heal and release, which I witnessed with my mom. So that took me on a journey to start with my first series of teachers. And that journey was a very extensive work with extraordinary, I would say, body work and somatic teachers, meditation teachers, Aikido teachers, starting in 1991, that has led me around the world to work with some of the best teachers in this field who are hands-on, really working with people one-on-one and in class situations to unlock the power of healing through the body and then the mind.
And what was the defining moment in this healing journey or your personal experience where you truly understood the wisdom of the body and how it holds on to not just pain, but also intelligence about how we should be living our life?
I remember it's actually one of the most profound things that happened. I've had many, but one that really marked me was early in the 90s. I was learning from a teacher. We were learning a very simple exercise on eyes, working with the eyes. One of us was lying down, the other person was facilitating. And as I was the facilitated with me, I got to experience what it felt like to have my eyes release. I didn't even know they were holding. And when I felt this release where my perception of the room and the space was able to widen, I also felt that my perception of myself, my emotions, my hidden mind was able to deepen. And that really was the set of my deep interest to learn more about the body. What I love in your question in terms of like unlocking more intelligence, when I realized my eyes could release and let go and I could have this different orientation, that my perception of everything started to change from there. I felt like life became more friendly, more close, more interesting. And I didn't even know prior to that my eyes had such an effect of keeping the world out and keeping the world of myself out. So having that transformation really set me on the decision to move into this direction.
You know, when I learned my hypnotherapy courses, you know, we were taught that everything starts with a thought. Yeah. So a thought is the root cause of every illness that we experience. Yes. Every thought generates an emotion that we feel. And if these thoughts and emotions are not addressed with in a healthy manner, they eventually affect your energy levels and manifest into the physical body. That's right. So we understand that a lot of the illnesses that we experience today are psychosomatic, which start in the mind and end up with the body.
That's right.
And research now is highlighting the fact that there is so much evidence to show that, for example, the grief that we're not able to process ends up manifesting as a form of illness or chronic ache or pain, or even cancer for that matter.
That's right.
What is your perspective on this?
Well, I would agree with you that it does start with a thought, not just a random thought, but it's really a thought that we believe. So, you know, we could have the thought that the sky is blue, but if it doesn't have any impact in the belief, then it won't necessarily harm the physical body. But if there's a thought that has an emotion behind it, so then we believe that, we kind of bury that into our thought process, we can bury that emotion or reaction in the body. And over time, that thought can germinate into symptoms in the body, like you said, grief or a whole myriad of things. So it's interesting that you brought in thoughts, because in fact, I do know that when I work with the body, that fundamentally it's working with the thought process of the person. They may not be aware of it right away, but it's helping that their thought process starts to reveal the initial belief that was believed that caused the pain in the first place.
Right.
So in fact, the way that I work with people, I could actually work through the mind into the body or the body into the mind, because they both are very much symbiotic. Yeah.
And so would you say your healing would address the subconscious mind, the nervous system, and the energy system at the same time?
Yes.
Through connecting either through the mind or through the body?
Yes. And I love that also, because when we work, whether it's in hypnotherapy or in other deep hidden mind therapies and or working through the soma, the body, it's training the person to become consciously aware of what might be hidden through the hidden mind or through the hidden tendencies in the body. And for me, the healing journey is a lot about my conscious awareness through the process of understanding myself and healing myself. So some things, you know, someone might go do and heal and have a moment of an epiphany. But if their conscious awareness is not involved in it, then they could kind of toss that as just an experience. Versus really working through the body, the nervous system, the emotional body, and or the mind, the hidden mind, with conscious awareness. Now a person can start to develop a language for themselves where their future reflects a different future than, let's say, the trauma or the pain that they might be holding. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You know, when I first got into the healing journey, I was doing so much like regression work and, inner child healing and processing a lot of the issues through the mental and emotional route, but it was only in the last 1.5 years that I've really explored working with the body, because as they say, your body has memories. You store memories not from this lifetime, but even previous lifetimes. And those memories are, even though you've dealt with things on the emotional and mental level, it still has an impact on you if you don't deal with the memories or the cells in your body. So I remembered when I experienced a healing session with you, you took me through a very traumatic healing process where I was in deep pain because you were pressing points in the feet, and you pressed them so intensely that I was like probably screaming in pain. But, it was very interesting because you said that the more you press those points, the neural pathways of the memories open up. It was very interesting. So if you could just, dive into that a little bit more to explain exactly how that actually works in a healing session.
Yeah. So what's interesting about the way that I work is that I'm aware that different parts of the body, let's take the bone. Mm-hmm. The bones exist everywhere in the body, right? Mm-hmm. From the feet all the way up to the skull. I can touch bone in certain places and I know that it will awaken a part of one's consciousness that will take them on a journey to another part of who they were, possibly a past life experience. Right. And when I say past life, I mean literally on the table, a client could have images of a time period. They see themselves. They could be a different gender, a different age, and completely different time period. Somehow the bone in that part of the body allowed for consciousness to open up and reveal that information to the person. So it's an interesting journey to really work in depth and all the way to the shallow element. Shallow element for me is the above the skin down into the bone. Each element can have stored information that the conscious mind has no idea about. So sometimes working with clients, in the midst of a session, behind their eyes, they'll be catapulted to a different timeline and witnessing this event happening. And I'm witnessing them witnessing this. Wow. And I'm aware that that information that's rising up into their awareness is information that they need. Right. This information they came to retrieve so that it can further their journey in this life. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the body can hold so much stored and hidden information. And with that said, I just want to add some parts of the body where I can touch and work with on a person could even bring up images of being like pre-3-year-old, meaning memories that we don't really access, but all of the sudden behind the eyes, the person will see an image of their mother or their father or them as if they're witnessing a play, but they know they are the person. So again, that information is wanting to be known, to be integrated so that the person can move forward in their life more integrated with more information. So yeah, the body can hold many layers to one's experience. And the more we can tap into that, the more we can bridge together with a lot of awareness the multiple elements of who we are as a human being, because we're not just one note. Right. I always see us like a collage of lifetimes and experiences.
Absolutely.
Learning in this moment.
Absolutely. I was reading an article in National Geographic, I think last week, and they were talking about how there's research being done, which is validating the fact that we store not only our previous lifetime, but also we carry the imprints of our ancestors in our DNA. And so a lot of it's not just your genes, but also a lot of the memories that we went through and the trauma that they experience is stored as memory and information in our genes, which is why we tend to repeat those patterns or we become loyal to those kind of behavior simply to, honor our ancestors.
That's right. Yeah. And I would love to add this to that element, because this happens a lot with my clients when they start working with me in this way, is that how I like to see this. If you imagine an old record, when we used to have records, and there'd be a scratch in the record.
Yeah.
That scratch could be something that the person experienced somewhere along in their life, where something emotional happened. So the mind believed a series of thoughts in. And as we live our life, we can have years and years of ease and bliss. Right. But when it comes back to that scratch, it's like the whole body mind will create or recreate a scenario so that we can either relive it or decide, okay, I keep experiencing this experience. I don't know where it's coming from, but I want to be able to heal through that. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's the person themselves experiencing things in this life, or as you said, sometimes it's in the gene, it's in the DNA, coming from our mother's lineage, our father's lineage. Yeah. Could be 10 lineages down, but somehow without it being healed throughout all those lineages, that scratch becomes part of our record.
Right.
And so it's up to us. Do I want to heal it? Do I want to work with it? Or do I just want to live through it?
Yeah. I think for a lot of people, healing can be so overwhelming because there's so much information out there today. There's so many different healing modalities. Mm-hmm. There's so many different healing approaches. And each healing approach, of course, has its wisdom. But what I'm beginning to notice is that, after experiencing, meeting so many different practitioners, experiencing so many different modalities, understanding so many different schools of thought, they're actually all very complementary to one another. And I'm seeing that the integrative approach is working amazingly well. So for a person who comes in for a somatic healing and body work ends up wanting to work on the mental and emotional process. Mm-hmm. A person coming in for a Reiki healing would now be interested to understand the root cause of their thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, which might be rooted in their childhood. Or for a person coming for hypnotherapy would, now be drawn into understanding how the body holds wisdom. So I'm beginning to see in this wellness field that this whole trend of an integrative approach of not just working, of course, on the body, but it's a complete integrative approach with the body, mind, thoughts, emotions, and even your soul for that matter.
Exactly. Yeah. And I love that you see that we are holistic, from the head to the toe to the ether, we exist, and we can approach in all these different angles to get in. Mm-hmm. And to me, the healing process is exactly as you said. It really is a multidisciplinary. Mm-hmm. Each thing can serve the depth and deepening and the releasing healing process for people. And sometimes some people might be more, let's say, mental oriented. So sitting and speaking might be their entryway.
Right.
And then that might take them to, and then it might take them to say, oh, now I'm curious about what happens if, I go through a somatic body healing session. Oh, that for me, it was actually somatic first. Mm-hmm. So I really needed to viscerally, emotionally feel a change to anchor into myself that healing can happen. But if I had started with talk therapy, let's say for myself, initially, I would have gone nowhere. Because it was the touch, the element of change that spoke to me. Right. But it can shift for someone else. And what you just said, coming at it from different angles, that is the way. Right. And each of us who are healers and teachers, for us to be, flexible to move from modality to modality is powerful. Right. Yeah.
And the women who come to you, do you feel like women of an older age come to you for more somatic therapy because perhaps, they're going through any illness or pain, as opposed to women who are younger, who are probably, obviously because of their younger, the stress hasn't reached their body yet. What do you find is the pattern amongst older and younger women coming for therapy?
It's a good question.
Or healing.
It's a really good question. So, I noticed that, and younger women, what's younger? Because actually, when I first started, I was 27, mm-hmm. so I could say I was, I was much younger. Right.
But you're an old soul, so let's not talk about
maybe. because it was one session that just really rocked myself, right? So
you were meant to be on this path.
I was meant. It's so true. But I will say this. I do find, let's say for the younger crowd, that sometimes experiencing, let's say, the kind of body work that I do, it can be overwhelming.
Right.
It's a lot. It's a lot of sensation, or it's a lot of images or experiences in the mind. And so the younger crowd, I could say, maybe it's a bit of a slower journey,
right.
Just putting their feet in the water and learning to be okay that they feel, or, oh, wow, there's other parts of them that they're not aware of. For the older crowd, it can be sometimes that they've held pain for a long time and they've just kind of dealt with it. Right. And now they're like, okay, I no longer want to carry this. Please help me, physically or emotionally or even mentally. I do know that everybody's timing is different. Right. And timing has to be honored, and everybody's path is different, and that has to be honored.
True.
Absolutely. Not one thing is for everyone.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I'm also noticing a lot of younger women have a lot of awareness about this whole idea of the masculine and the feminine.
Yes.
And how a lot of women want to obviously be in their feminine. And, the perception is that if you're career oriented or ambitious, you might be operating in your masculine, and that might be creating like hormonal issues in your body. You might not be attracting the right partner because you'd be attracting a man who's very feminine. So I'm sure you get a lot of that because they're still navigating the relationships and, trying to understand their role in life.
That's right.
Whereas older women are just like, whatever. I am who I am. Right. And I'm going through pain right now. And I just want to, resolve this and understand all the years. Because, a lot of healing comes with experience. Like wisdom comes with age, sometimes I find, or experience, of course, and I feel that, like once you reach a certain age, there's a wisdom that emerges, especially if you've been through a lot of the ups and downs that life has to offer. So if you could shed a bit more light, because I know you do a lot of work on feminine embodiment and helping women step into their true feminine sensuality. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yes, this is such a fascinating topic, and it needs time to unpack. But let me start by saying that, yes, I've worked with women for 34 years in different countries. I've led groups, I've led programs, and I work one-on-one, so I have extensive training. When I see this topic of masculine, feminine, I like to bring it down to the nuts and bolts. For me, it has to do with the left brain, right brain axis. So females, when we go into puberty, we have some special hormones. We have estrogen, progesterone, some small amount of testosterone. Those hormones allow that we have a strong right brain and a strong left brain. Men, when they go through their element of 13, 14, 15, and they change hormones, testosterone becomes their main hormone. And when that happens, it orients that their focus is left side of their brain. So that's much more logical. It's rational. It has to do with living in time, like they're time oriented. And they live in efficiency. So left brain is very particular. Now, in business, it's pretty much left brain. So left brain, doesn't matter what business, even if it's a healing center, you still need to have a good access and dose of left brain, logic and efficiency and time management and certain things like that to run the business. So any female that's in a corporation or even an entrepreneurial position, she's going to have to work that left brain, which is great. However, the estrogen, progesterone of a female makes that the right brain, which is creative. It lives in sensation, it lives in feeling, and it gives us access to emotions. Now, most women, even young or older, go against their emotions as if emotions are a problem. Now, if we look at a left brain world, we can say the emotions are a problem because it's not efficient, it's not logical, right? In a left brain world, in business, Emotions, it's not the place for that. However, the emotional content in females, in the way that I work with women, is training women that their emotions and their feelings, if we work with them, tune in with them, can be information that accelerates our process forward. Even in business, you can use your emotional strength to know, should I make a decision on this level or should I make a decision here? Sometimes it takes a moment to sit and feel that through, but I'm sure you're a businesswoman, so you know how to work with how the emotions are also affecting your logical mind.
Right.
And you want that this becomes friends, not one side or another.
Yeah.
However, in a highly corporate situation, the emotional content is not so needed. So that's the part that women train themselves to kind of close down or push to the side to be able to be efficient at work and do what they're supposed to do. But if you add 5 years, 10 years, 15 years to that process, now that female will be in trouble because she spent time kind of pushing a side of her aside for a long time as a practice.
Yeah.
And then when she needs to access that information, it could feel like mayhem in her mind, in her body. So there's something about learning how to work with these two sides of our brain. Both are essential. And because females are naturally firing both left brain, right brain, for a woman to learn how to utilize the right brain and the left brain. Right brain, we could say, is the feminine. Left brain, we could say, is the masculine. Learn to blend those two. Now you have a highly intelligent female that can use two sides of her brain at the same time and trust the information that she's feeling, sensing, and logically putting words to.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so profound. So to put it in simple terms, is it more like the art of knowing when to do, which is the masculine, and the art of knowing when to be, which is about being feminine?
Beautiful. That's right. Yes. And if I could even fine tune that, like a true woman, in my definition, she's simultaneous in both.
That's amazing.
The doing and the being, it's not one or the other.
It's like a dance.
It's a dance, exactly. But it takes a lot of awareness to be able to do that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So I guess that's why you say things like meditation and somatic practices and really taking the time every day to tune into both your mind, your body, and your energy to be able to access that intuition, to be able to then channelize that towards your everyday life, be it in your health, career, relationships.
Yeah, and I highly encourage all women, no matter what age, to learn to like, as a simple practice, I could say, like, to lie on the floor, pull your knees into your chest, to close your eyes and to breathe and feel the inhale and the exhale, and steady the mind and just quiet the mind as you breathe in and breathe out for a good 5-10 minutes, and allow that the nervous system kind of downregulates and settles, and then just let thought happen without trying to control, and just allow that the left brain, right brain comes into a kind of balance with itself without the doer part. The doing is the lying on the back, bringing your knees into your chest, breathing in, breathing out, but then passively experiencing experience. If you did that 5-10 minutes every morning, then when we roll over, bring ourselves to standing, there's a sense of being at home with oneself, so that as you move into the doing, being element of life, there's a presence and a balance between the left and right brain. So for me, women's practices are passive, feeling, steadying mind, being aware, and breathing. That, done daily, develops trust, confidence, and a sense of, I know who I am.
Right.
I know where I'm going. I know what I want.
Well, that's an amazing place to be.
Yes, it really is.
I'm so happy like listening to you, because I know we've had so many amazing conversation over long walks on the beach.
That's right.
And I always imagined that we'd be on a podcast together, and that's come to life. So that's really nice. And so what's next for you, Ariel? Because you're doing a lot of the one-on-one. And where do you see yourself? Because you have so much amazing knowledge and wisdom to share. I feel like you should run a program or a training or to teach women how to be able to do this for themselves, and for those probably who want to take it a step further to be able to work with others. So where would you see yourself?
I'm just sowing the seed, by the way. You're always planting the seed with me. It's so good. So two things. One of the things that I want to do is to create a series of online programs that are stepping people into a process of self-learning for themselves. And some of these programs are brief, 10, 15 minutes, and some are 9 months. So really, I want to create a whole library of information, processes, practices that can really guide a person into higher states of who they are, male or female. So that's one thing. The other thing is I do want to put together an in-person. I'm the type of teacher who I believe strongly that we really learn when we're next to another person. That actually online is harder to learn, even though I might create that.
Exactly, yeah.
That really we need the emotional, visceral, intellectual connection to kind of step by step take our own intelligence to the next place. So really for me, being close to a teacher is the way to learn.
Absolutely.
So in terms of a program, I might create something for Illuminations.
Well, that's what I was getting towards, but now that you said it.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe I'll do something that is, it's definitely my heart's desire. You know, I really love working with people. And I love watching and witnessing the unfoldment of how people can grow and heal and develop into their higher selves, you know, and it's my love. So yeah, maybe I will do one here in Illuminations.
We look forward to that. Any books that you'd recommend for our listeners that would be something that would align with everything that you just said?
Wow.
On the podcast.
2 books for women. There's a very simple, small book, and I'm not sure if you have it. I didn't see it. I never told you the title of this book. It's called A Circle of Stones.
A Circle of Stones.
Circle of Stones. It's a thin book. It was probably written in the 1980s or maybe even the 70s.
Okay.
It's a book of reminder, I would say, especially for women. It's a woman's book. Each page is kind of speaking about the old ways, but it's reminding us of our humanity. I think it's a phenomenal book for each woman. In fact, I read that book when I was like teenager, and it just imprinted something in my mind that also is part of the healing journey, where I decided I really want to learn and understand something that I didn't see in the world, but that book like opened that for me. So A Circle of Stones. And then this book that in the somatic trauma world, The Body Keeps the Score. Yeah.
I read that.
Yeah, and that book describes a lot about how our physical body can hold the story of our life story.
I have an interesting story about that, because I was in India. I had like an issue with my back, my L2. And one of the doctors, he was pretty aware, and he was just like, well, you need to read this book, The Body Keeps Score, and I'm sure the back pain will disappear. And I'm like, yeah, because he's like, well, you probably know this. So
Yes, that's right. That's right. Book, so many places of where we hold pain is first the mind believed a thought, the emotion wrapped around it, and then depending on where the emotion is where we grip or hold. So back pain, even internal organ pain is mind. Emotion, and then the body will grip and hold.
Right. Okay, so let me ask you something. Very recently, the last year, as you know, the last 2 years have been very trying for me in terms of work, a lot of overwhelm. But during that time, I was actually on overdrive. I was just being extremely resilient. I was hustling, as you would say. But finally, when everything started, when the dust started to settle, I noticed that, I went to a retreat and I was working on my physical body. I did a bit of a detox and I felt great. Like I was only focusing on myself for that 1 week. I left the retreat and literally 48 hours later, doing nothing. I just got up from my bed and I had the worst back pain I've ever experienced in my entire life. So for the 2 years, I experienced nothing. But the moment my body, was able to relax and my nervous system was regulated, suddenly I was experiencing a lot of physical issues and I was rushed to the emergency almost 3 times last year, which we had spoken about.
Yeah.
So why did you think that happened? Like, because at the time I was going through all the stress, I was completely fine. But the moment I took a step back and I really tuned into my body and focused on my self-care, all of a sudden, everything just erupted. Like, why does that happen?
That's a good question. And, there could be different answers to that. But I would say this, in knowing that happened for you, sometimes, first I want to go backtrack a little bit. You had 2 years of doing amazing, moving, stretching yourself, learning and doing all things that you loved at a pace that was good for you at that moment in time.
Right.
And then when you took the time off to go and heal and let go, sometimes the memory doesn't let go all the way. So sometimes, even in my work, when I work with someone, they might need a series of sessions that allows that the hidden content of the mind fully release whatever residual thought processes that it still might be holding. And then the muscle memory of the body have a little more time through the letting go process. Because here's the thing, mind is air. It's neurons in the brain, and then it's the air, what I call the air element. We can move quickly through air. Body is dense.
Right.
So muscle memory, ligament memory, nerves memory, that is a slower process. It doesn't release as fast sometimes. Mind might, but then it might take however many sessions or however many processes before the body goes, okay, now I can let go of the fullness of whatever it was that it was holding. And sometimes that takes a little more time because body is dense. Body needs time, whereas mind can go fast. So that's sometimes, working through the body, working through the mind, you need a different understanding. Mind is fast, body is slow. So even if you went to this great, beautiful retreat space, the body needed more time to process, more time to let go. And the other thing that people aren't so aware of, that I'm very aware of in my work, is that different organs in the body hold memory as well. We always say the liver has anger. Yes. And the other organs, the pancreas, the spleen, the gallbladder, the duodenum, the large small intestine, the ileocecal valve, even the ovaries and the bladder can contain information. So let's say you go to a retreat, you release, but an organ is still holding.
Right.
Because it needs more time to process, to really release. One of the things I recommend to everybody that I work with, and I don't always articulate this, but I will say this here, sleep. Sonia.
I know. It's funny that you say that, because I was just telling Irina actually.
Yes.
That, I have this need to wake up super early in the morning. And I know the benefits that it has, but because unless and until I'm not ready to sleep at 9:30 or 10 p.m. at night, I end up really getting a lot less sleep than I need,
Yes.
And I do see the impact of that. But there's a sense of like a guilt of like, oh, I have to be that person who wakes up at 5 a.m. in the morning. And, the whole, that book that I read called The Miracle Morning by Dan something, and it's all about, the power of a morning routine. But I'm also trying to be kind to my body and be like, it's okay. Sleep till 7:30 or 8 and, it's fine. Like nothing's going to happen. But I feel so much guilt because of that. So I think...
Well, let me add this, and I love that you said that. I was in India. I lived in India in the 90s for almost a year by myself. And one of the things I noticed, I was in a village countryside village.
Yeah.
Beautiful. One of the things I noticed is how early the populace woke up. So by 4:30, even earlier than that, the families were already starting the fires and already starting the pujas and already starting this. It's beautiful. Yeah. So maybe part of that is the DNA, coming from
absolutely
this part. But here's the thing. Two things I want to say. First off, sleep is the time when the body can heal. So when you ask the question of, you were pushing yourself for 2 years, you went on a retreat, and then when you came back in a relaxed moment, you got up and the body contracted, right? Your body needed more time for whatever reason, because the body is dense. So sleep is the time to let go, 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 in deep, deep, deep places, all the way down to the nervous system. Let go. Now, once that let go is fully happening, now the body and all the intelligence is finding a way to bring itself back into balance without you or me getting involved, without mind getting involved. Absolutely. So sleep is vital to the healing and the rejuvenation process, both of the mind, the intelligence, the heart, and the body. Okay, so sleep is so important. The second thing I wanted to say is that if we lived in a world where we didn't have to drive on the freeway, where we didn't have to deal with, let's say, a modern way of life, well, then getting up at 4:30 and then joining with the sunrise, fantastic. If we can be in the circadian rhythm of easing our day, by 7:30, 8:30, 9:30, turning off all the lights and letting the body, and then we wake up at 4:35, okay. We have enough time to be in balance with the full system of the body, the full system of Earth.
Absolutely.
But if you push it, going to bed at 11, 12, 1, 2 in the morning, and then trying to do 5:30, now you're going to burn the candle at both ends, and then you're going to suffer in the long run, because sleep is when we heal.
Absolutely.
That's the beauty of sleep, is healing time.
I could go on asking you a lot more questions, and this podcast would go on for hours, but it's been amazing, Ariel.
Thank you so much, Sonia.
Thank you for your wisdom and your sharing.
Thank you for inviting me so much. Yeah. Oops.
Enough of the formalities now.
Okay.
So for anyone tuning in, thank you so much for listening in to this yet another amazing, insightful episode of the Illuminations World podcast. And please do remember that if you liked this podcast, subscribe in the button below, share it with your friends, spread the love, and take care. Until next time, live light. Thanks for tuning in to the Illuminations podcast. We love having you here. It is our mission to be a beacon of light on your journey towards conscious and mindful living. In our weekly episode, we bring you inspiring change makers in the field of spirituality, healing, personal growth, and wellness who share their insight and expertise so you can navigate your way to a happier, healthier, and more purposeful life.